Thanks, Andrew. I'm glad you reminded me who I am, because with you lot looking at me, it's easy to forget. I will talk. I've got two slides. You probably know who I am now. You don't know about Belgium. I've got two slides on who Belgium are, and then I plan to talk about the challenges of discovery and regulation from a manufacturer's perspective, based on a manufacturer survey run by Felix McDougall on behalf of CropLife and the ECPA. Belgium is owned 75% Belgian company, 25% by ISK, Japanese company. This is the fourth office since I've been with Belgium in 2003, and that's about 20 minutes north of Brussels Airport. We operate throughout the whole of Europe. We've got offices in South Africa, and we're now starting to expand into other countries. Currently 410 employees. 420 million euro turnover currently, and our UK office is in St Neots, which is about 30 minutes west of Cambridge. Also, close to the office in Belgium, we have a trial station. That's 10 hectares of land. You can see about half of it there, and then there's maize on the right, and to the right-hand side of that, then there's a similar area of land. Now, that 10 hectares allows us to obviously rotate crops, etc., etc. And it allows us to look at our current products, but also future products in a whole range of crops. 30 different crops is not unusual, so we can look at both protected crops and outdoor crops and look at our products as part of a programme and look for solutions to gaps that currently exist or may exist in the future. So in terms of the challenges from a manufacturer perspective, the discovery, development and regulation, this is a snapshot of where we are at the moment, and it's not pretty reading. We've lost a significant number of active ingredients through the 91414 directive, which was then superseded by 1107/2009. And the first column, you can see the number of active substances that went into the process. You can see the number that was approved, which totals 503, and you can see the frightening number of not approved active ingredients. And worse still, that number of 503 will significantly reduce. You may have heard of the AIR programme, active ingredient renewal. So a lot of the products that are on the approved list are actually going through a renewal process. And unfortunately, a lot of them are not going to make it, so that number will reduce even further. And although that number sounds like a lot of active ingredients, it isn't. The far right-hand column, the pending new active substances, they are the products, they are the actives in the system at the moment, so that's brand new actives coming. That's good news. But it's a long and lengthy process, and we'll see that as I go through. The most recent new active substance took 61 months from submission to a positive vote by the EU, and then it has to be registered at member state level by each country. It's a long process. Factors affecting agrochemical spend and focus of spend. Bear in mind this is done on a manufacturer survey, so this is direct feedback from big manufacturers, medium-sized manufacturers. There's a reduction in the number of R&D driven companies, particularly the medium-sized companies who have diverted their spend to progress and develop existing AIs rather than research new active ingredients. An increasing focus on biologicals, that's a good thing, and a shift in focus of the budget to defend older chemistry. And you can see from the previous slide, and you'll see in future slides as well, it's not an easy task, and it's quite a costly exercise to bring old active ingredients up to modern standards. And as we are aware of the next two, there's been an obvious shift in manufacturer spend, particularly the larger manufacturers, towards biotech, seeds and traits. And the previous slide, if nothing else illustrates what a tough environment regulatory is, then nothing will. It's tough out there, particularly in Europe with new regulations. On the plus side, there have been improvements in chemistry techniques and screening processes that allow a much larger number of active ingredients to be screened compared to 10, 20 years ago, and we'll see that later. And the use of genomics in terms of identifying target sites within pests, for example, has allowed a much more focused approach to product development. The last one, increasing cost of a new active herbicide ingredient in the market because of the regulations. I'll show a slide on that later, but that is a significant concern. This slide illustrates what I was saying about the seeds and traits, which we know about. But in 2010, the R&D money spent on seeds and traits actually overtook the money spent on traditional chemistry. Since then, they're actually tracking at the same rate, so the same amount of money is being spent on each pro rata. What I said before about the number of active ingredients being screened, you can see that if you look at the top line, the research synthesis line, in 1995, 52,000 actives screened per year. In 2010 to 2014, on average, 3 times that. But if you look at the development line, 4 actives went through in 95 and only 1.5 in 2010, 2014. And that's because the hurdles are being set so much higher now by manufacturers, because they have to be sure that when a product goes into development, and we'll see on a later slide, the spend is enormous. So they have to be sure that when it gets to that point, it will make it through to registration. And that's why a lot of products that you may have put through before are failing now. They're not taking the decision to put those forward. So in terms of numbers that actually reach registration, it's the same, despite screening 3 times the number of actives. It's the same as it was 20 years ago. And the bottom table shows that really, because of the complexity of the regulatory system now, in terms of data, studies, the time it takes to address those studies and get registration, the time between synthesis of a new active and actually getting it on the market has increased from just over 8 years 20 years ago to over 11 years now. That does have implications from a manufacturer's perspective. It gives you less time to get a return on investment, and that return on investment is important because that's what funds the next development. I think this slide illustrates quite clearly what I've spoken about in the previous slides, and the reason for the reduction in the number of active ingredients in development, although it is showing a slight increase over recent years. But although that's the number of actives in development, in terms of patents filed, there are 10 times the number of patents filed as there are active ingredients in development. And that's a positive thing, because although there are less companies in research and development, it shows that those that are in it now are being more inventive. There's a lot more patents being filed. This is a complicated graph, but basically what it's saying is, if you look at the 2 sections, if you look at the bottom where it says research, so you've got chemical synthesis, so that's synthesizing the products, the biology, the early screening, so glasshouse trials, early field pot studies, to determine if there's a possibility to move it on into development. And you'll see there's the tox environmental chemistry, which is the 3rd bar up, is quite small at that stage. The difficult decision is jumping from research into development, because once you push that button, the expense is enormous. And if you look at just taking a line, I don't know if this actually, okay, that doesn't work. If you take a line going from 95 upwards, you can see that the additional cost in field trials, because of the additional studies, the toxicology line, I would tell you a colour, but I'm colourblind, so it won't be the same you're seeing probably. And the environmental chemistry line and the registration line have all gone up significantly, and that's due to all the extra studies. And when you're having to spend $286 million in this case to get one active on the market, one product on the market, it's a significant decision to take. The good news is manufacturers are still spending. In a survey of 14 companies, they predicted that between 2014 and 19, their increase spend on R&D would go up 20%. Their spend on research of new active ingredients just over 15%, development of active ingredients 45%, and spend on biologicals over 50%. So manufacturers are still investing. in summary, trends and challenges, stewardship measures, and Guy referred to all the stewardship policies or stewardship measures out there, and I know it's easy to say another stewardship measure, you know, we're already doing this and this and this, but if we don't introduce them, we'll lose products. It's as simple as that. We have to be doing something. They will be critical for existing products and new products. Integrated pest, crop management, resistant management will become even more important, and biological products will certainly have a part in that, and they will have more of a part in it when we understand how to optimise their performance. New delivery systems and formulation technology, for sure there are products out there now that without that wouldn't be on the market. I can say that for certain. And new products coming along, new actives, will need inventive and innovative systems to allow them to be registered. I don't see, whatever happens with Brexit, I don't see that it will be any easier to register products. There will still be extremely stringent criteria, especially from an environmental point of view, and buffer zones arguably are already the norm, but they will become more so. But without those buffer zones, we wouldn't be able to register some products. Yeah. So as an industry, we need to work together to keep what we have, maximise the longevity of both existing and new products, and through stewardship, communication, knowledge transfer, and a joined-up approach will become even more important during these uncertain times. But I certainly believe that innovation, both chemical and non-chemical, will pay off. Thank you.